The OHL trade deadline has come and gone, and now we can look forward to the OHL playoffs, which are just a couple months away. There were some big buyers, some big sellers, and some teams that kind of just did a few additions and some pretty sneaky ones in a good way, I think. But let's take a look at the week that was with our OHL Power Rankings for January 15th. Starting things off with number 20, it's the Peterborough Petes. They went 0-1-1 last week. Their losing streak now at 5 games, and they only have one win in their last 10. So it's tough sledding right now for the Peterborough Petes. They sold off at the deadline as expected, but some of their new additions are paying off already. So a lot of positive signs with the Peterborough Petes going forward. Caden Taylor, who they picked up from the Sudbury Wolves, he scored in his debut. And then also Nico Addy getting his first as a Peterborough Pete in the win again, or in the loss to the Kingston Frontenac. So if you're a Petes fan, you're still excited about that championship last year, but I think you've got something to look forward to. They've got a good young core. They've got some picks, so they can build and add. And don't expect this team to turn things around in the next couple of years. We could be talking about another Peterborough Petes team ready to go on a deep run with the assets that they've picked up. I really like what they did. For the Petes, they do play a 3-3 this week, starting Thursday at home against Owen Sound. Then they travel to Oshawa and end the week against the Saginaw Spirit. So a tough way to end a 3-3. At number 19, we have the Barrie Colts. They fell 3 positions this week. The Colts, another team that sold off at the deadline. They went 0-2 last week, including a 4-1 loss in Niagara. The Colts still 4 points behind Peterborough for the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. And one thing that's really noticeable about this team, they play night and day different between their home games and their road games. They only have 3 wins in total away from the Saddlein Arena. So it's just remarkable just how different this team plays from the Saddlein to away throughout the season. So the Barrie Colts, going through the growing pains right now with the younger talent, but things are looking up. The Colts, they did put up a good fight against Brantford, which included Michael Durbridge scoring his first goal as a Barrie Colt. And then, just 2 games this week for Barrie Colt fans to look forward to. They're going to be at home to Sudbury on Thursday before hosting Niagara on Saturday. And then they will travel to Sudbury on Sunday for a matinee game at the Sudbury Community Arena. At number 18, it's the Mississauga Steelheads, down another position. It has been a steady decline for Mississauga. They went 1-2 last week, although that one win was on the road in Sudbury. So that one, a big win against the Central Division leading Wolves. But for Mississauga, they're 4-6 in their last 10 games. They continue, though, to get strong play from players like Porter Martone. He's now 5th in goals in the OHL with 28. So despite this team slipping in the standings and struggling to put strings of wins together, Martone and company, a real threat for this team. And I think for Mississauga, they're a team that could turn things around, get back to the way they were playing at the start of the regular season. They do have 3 games this week, starting in Niagara, and then home to North Bay and Brantford. At number 17, it's the Sarnia Sting. They're up 2 positions this week. It started rough for them this week. They lost their first 2 games by a combined score of 16-5. That was against London and Sudbury, so 2 top teams in the OHL. But then they won 3-1 yesterday in Mississauga. So it's great to see them getting those points as they continue to try and catch Flint in the Western Conference standings. The Sting, they are a young team, and for them, if they're going to get points and maybe threaten a playoff spot, they're going to have to continue to get great goaltending from Nick Szerzicka. He made 33 saves on 34 shots yesterday. So if he can do that again, this is a Sarnia team that could get some points and maybe give Flint a bit of a run for their money. The Sting, they're on the road this afternoon. They're going to play the Erie Otters, and then they're going to host Sault Ste. Marie Friday, and then travel to Flint on Saturday. So that's a big game when it comes to the Western Conference standings between the Sarnia Sting and the Flint Firebirds. At number 16, it's the Niagara Ice Dogs. They are up 2 positions. They went 1-1 last week. They had a big win at home against the Barrie Colts as they try to climb back into the playoff picture. Niagara, they're 7 points behind the Petes and have points in 6 of their last 10 games. So Niagara right now, they've been playing shorthanded due to injuries, and then they've traded away some key players, but they are still finding ways to get points. Kevin he now has 20 goals on the season. He's also riding a 6-game point streak. So I love the play of Kevin He as the Niagara Ice Dogs look to build around him for the future. The Ice Dogs are at home Thursday against Mississauga before traveling to Barrie and North Bay this weekend. At number 15, the Kingston Frontenacs, no change from last week. Paul Ludwinski, he was the hero for Kingston to open the week with an overtime win against Peterborough. But then they lost 2 in a row against the Oshawa Generals, including an 8-2 loss last night in Oshawa. And it just seems like the Generals, and to an extent their fans, kind of got into the heads of the Kingston players. There was a situation where the few fans were removed near the Frontenac's bench in Oshawa last night. And if a team is going to compete, you kind of have to find a way to block those distractions. And I feel like this distractions kind of got the better of this Kingston team that's trying to turn things around. Kingston, they play 2 at home this week. They're going to be at home against Owen Sound and Saginaw. Speaking of Owen Sound, the Attack, they come in at number 14, down 2 positions. It was a rough week for Owen Sound. They went 0-3, including a 10-0 loss on the road in London. Owen Sound, they opened the trade deadline with the big pickup of Connor Smith and Sam McHugh. And, it might take some time for players to get used to the systems and new players and whatnot. But the Attack, they're now 7th in the Western Conference standings, and they've lost 4 in a row. So Owen Sound really needing to try and turn things around. They are doing the East Division road trip this weekend, so stops in Peterborough, Kingston, and Ottawa. At number 13, the Windsor Spitfires, up another position. Windsor, one of the busier teams at the trade deadline, moving players out and then bringing new guys in, like Jabril Toure and Pascal Izito. And, they managed to go 1-1, so not a bad week. They did lose 11-3 to Saginaw to start things off, but then came back and beat the Sudbury Wolves 11-7. So this team, a lot of inconsistencies, but still a win's a win, especially against a team like the Sudbury Wolves. And for Zito, putting up 5 points in his return to Windsor in the win against Sudbury. So a good sign there as Pasquale Zito was at home, not reporting to the North Bay Battalion for his overager season, and then was asked for a trade. And sounds like he was asking to go back to Windsor, and he gets 5 points in his debut. So there's still 7 points behind Flint for that final playoff spot in the West. So anything is possible if this Windsor team can continue to get performances like that, but they need to keep the pucks out of the net. They are at home on Thursday against Sault Ste. Marie before traveling to Brantford and Oshawa. At number 12, we have the Flint Firebirds. They are up 1 position. It was a decent week for Flint. They went 2-1 after trading away leading scorers Gavin Hayes and Zachary Giroux, and then bringing in Oliver Peer and Roberto Mancini. So Flint, it kind of felt like a shell game at the trade deadline, moving overagers out, moving some new ones in, and they look like they could be a competitive team in the Western Conference. Not a favorite. I'm not saying they're going to go on a deep run here, but just they're going to make things a little challenging for some of these teams in the West. The Firebirds, the big thing is I think they're trying to hold off Sarnia and Windsor, who are outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs. And for Pierre, solid first week with the Flint Firebirds. 2 goals, 4 assists, good for 6 points. And Flint, they do travel to Guelph Friday and then home to Sarnia on Saturday. At 11, it's the Erie Otters. No change for them. Erie, they were 1-1 last week and had a big 7-2 win over Flint. Dylan Edwards recording a hat trick in that hockey game, while Payno Femus 4 assists in that game. So the Otters still finding ways to get it done. And for Erie, they were really quiet at the trade deadline, which surprised many. But their only add was Charlie Burns from the Niagara Ice Dogs, a young goaltender prospect playing with the Fort Erie Meteors in the GOJHL. So this team's still looking to the future, but at the same time wanting to end that playoff drought as they haven't been in the playoffs since 2017. So Erie in action this afternoon. They're going to take on the Sarnia Sting, and then they go north with stops in North Bay, Sudbury, and Sault Ste. Marie. Never an easy road trip, especially when all 3 of those teams are very competitive right now in the Ontario Hockey League. At number 10, the Ottawa 67s. No change for them from last week. It's actually their 3rd week in a row sitting at number 10 on the power rankings. The 67s, they were able to snap that 6-game losing streak with a 6-5 win in a shootout against Brantford, and they went 2-1 on their road trip. Colin McKenzie also returned to the lineup for the 67s, which is a huge boost for them between the pipes, especially after trading Max Donoso to Windsor at the trade deadline. Ottawa, 3 points out of 1st in the East Division, so it's still wide open. They do have 2 home games this week against Saginaw and Owen Sound, so that Spirit game, that's going to be a big challenge, and it's going to be at TD Place, so we'll see what the 67s can do there on home ice. At number 9, it's the Guelph Storm. They fell 1 position, and it was not an easy week for the Storm. They went 0-2 with losses on the road in Sault Ste. Marie and Saginaw, so the 2 top teams in the West Division. But for Guelph, Jake Carabella, he's been a bright spot for the Storm. A goal and an assist in those 2 games, and he's right now riding a 4-game point streak, so Carabella getting it done. The week ahead for Guelph, they're home to Kitchener and then Flint. So just 2 games this week. At number 8, it's the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. They've fallen 2 positions. And for Sault Ste. Marie, they were pretty busy at the trade deadline. They picked up Jacob Frasca, Gavin Hayes at the deadline, and they're looking to hold on a top spot in the West Division, but it's been a rough couple weeks for them. They went 1-1 last week, and they are 5-4-1 over their last 10 games. So 5 points out of first place right now in the Western Conference, but they're only 1 point ahead of Saginaw. And right now, the Spirit, they have 2 games in hand on the Greyhounds. So it's a bit of a tough spot for Sault Ste. Marie as they've kind of fallen off. Their offense not clicking like we saw in the first half of the season. But I believe the Greyhounds, they should be a team that can turn things around. There's a lot of talent on this Sioux team. But the Western Conference, it is going to be a tough second half. For Sault Ste. Marie, they're in Windsor and Sarnia to start the week, and then return home Sunday afternoon to take on the Erie Otters. At number 7, we have the Brantford Bulldogs. They're up 2 positions this week. Brantford, they were one of the better teams I felt at the trade deadline. They got tons of picks in the Dorian Donovan trade to Saginaw, 8 picks there, and then also sending Noah Van Vliet to Sudbury, getting more picks in that deal. But it's also who they picked up, which I think is going to keep them competitive in that East Division. They're already having an impact. Brantford, they went 1-0-1 with that one loss being in a shootout against Ottawa. Zachary Lavoie, he scored 2 goals in his debut with the Bulldogs. Daniel Sobolev, he scored the game-tying goal in his debut against Ottawa. Well, Owen Protz, he had a fantastic game for the Bulldogs in Barrie on Saturday after coming from the Sudbury Wolves and the Van Vliet trade. So I think the Bulldogs looking like they could still be competitive in that East Division. They're still first right now, and they play 2 at home against Oshawa and Windsor before traveling to Mississauga. So I think that game there Wednesday night between Brantford and Oshawa should be fantastic. And the Brantford Civic Center, it's going to be quite the atmosphere when those two tangle there Wednesday night. At number 6, we have the Sudbury Wolves. They fell 1 position. Sudbury, they went 1-2 after being busy at the OHL trade deadline. That includes an 11-7 loss to the Windsor Spitfires. Now, for this team, I think it's going to take them some time for everyone to get adjusted to one another and the systems. This is a Sudbury Wolves team, remember, that kind of had that slow start and just seemed to be that chemistry was an issue at first. So now that they've made these moves, I think it's going to take them a little bit to get going once again. But they are sitting first place in the Eastern Conference. So that is a positive sign for Sudbury. David Goyette also has been standing out. 3 goals, 1 assist over the last 2 games, and he's now 5th in assists in the OHL with 36. The Sudbury Wolves, they're in Barrie on Thursday before hosting Erie, and then again Barrie on Sunday. So this is a weekend where they should go 3-0, but we'll have to wait and see because we have to play the games. At number 5, we have the North Bay Battalion. They are up 2 positions this week. They went 2-0 last week, including a big 6-3 win on the road against the Sioux Greyhounds. Anthony Romani, he is now tied for first in points with Hunter Brustevich with 67, and he's second in goals with 35. So Anthony Romani getting it done. He's also riding a 17-game point streak. Plus, with the additions at the deadline, North Bay, I think they're going to be a real threat in that Central Division. They're already 1 point back of Sudbury for first. So North Bay making some noise. And, when you've got a goaltender like Dom DiVincentis as well, one of the top goalies in the league, he can steal you some games. And this team, they look for real. And we'll wait and see what the Battalion can do in this final stretch. North Bay, they do host Erie Thursday before traveling to Mississauga. And then they're home to Niagara. At number 4, we have the Saginaw Spirit. They dropped 1 position. Saginaw, they loaded up at the deadline and then went 2-1 last week. Their 1 loss was on the road against the London Knights. So 2 powerhouses went head-to-head at Budweiser Gardens, and the Knights getting the better of Saginaw. And I think this is a sign of things to come for Saginaw in a good way. Don't be surprised to see them either first or second in the Western Conference standings in the coming weeks. This Saginaw team, they are deep. Owen Beck, who they picked up from Peterborough, 2 goals, 4 assists in his debut. And then Zane Parekh recording another hat trick in the 11-3 win over Windsor. And just remember, Parekh, he's a defenseman. So he's getting it done offensively and really helping out this team. Saginaw, they play 3-3 on the road this weekend, so it's going to be tough. Ottawa, Peterborough, and Kingston. At number 3, we have the Oshawa Generals up 1 spot, and you cannot take this Oshawa team lightly right now. They're a real threat in the East. They went 3-0 last week, including an 8-2 win last night at home against Kingston. So Oshawa, they're getting that offense. It's clicking finally. And I also love the addition of Connor Punnett. He's looking to be fitting in well with Oshawa. He has a goal and 2 and assists in 3 games. So Punnett getting it done. And for Oshawa, they're also riding a 5-game winning streak, 2 points behind Brantford for first in the East Division. So look out for the Oshawa Generals. They were a team that was way behind off the start. They had that slow start to the season, but injuries were an issue. And then Callum Ritchie, he came back in November. And since then, they've kind of been picking up momentum. They got that win against Saginaw the other week, and it just seems to be working right now for Oshawa. So we'll see how long they can continue this going. And they do play in Brantford on Wednesday, so that's a big game for the top spot in the division. And then they host Peterborough and Windsor. At number 2, it's the Kitchener Rangers. So no change from last week. The Rangers, the lead in the Western Conference, it's slipping. They went 2-0 last week, but they hold on to that top spot by just 1 point ahead of the London Knights. Edward Chalet, unable to play yesterday due to injury, but Olivier Savard, he looked all right playing with the Rangers this weekend after being acquired from Barrie. No points yet for Savard, but he's not really known as that offensive defenseman. He's that stay-at-home physical defenseman blocking shots and great with that breakout pass out of the zone. So Savard looks like he's fitting in nicely with Kitchener. The Rangers are in Guelph Wednesday before a crucial home-and-home series with the London Knights. And first place on the line likely between Kitchener and London. So that's going to be a huge weekend at the Odd and at Budweiser Gardens. So that leaves us with the number 1 team in the power rankings this week. And for the second week in a row, it's the London Knights. London, they're riding a 12-game winning streak. They went 3-0 last week, outscoring their opponents 25-3. That includes wins against Sarnia, Saginaw, and Owen Sound. The Knights, they're playing lights out right now. Second highest scoring team now in the OHL. They lead the lead in penalty minutes. They're 1 point behind Kitchener for first in the Western Conference in the OHL. And Denver Barkey, he's been racking up the points. He's now third with 64. So Denver Barkey getting it done. And this is all despite making just 1 trade at the OHL trade deadline. Some thought London might have been a team that would have looked to have been busier, but all they did was pick up Caleb Lawrence from Ottawa, the overage center. And he's fitting in quite nicely with London right now. 2 goals, 1 assist in 3 games. And the Knights, they do play a crucial home-and-home this weekend against Kitchener. That's it for them. And they could be in first place in the Ontario Hockey League by the end of the week. They could have a 14-game winning streak when we do the power rankings again next week. So London looks like the real deal right now, but you'll want to tune in, I think, for that home and home series between the Knights and the Rangers. It's going to be a ton of fun, and can't wait to see what's in store. So thanks again for tuning in. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on the week that was. Maybe give us your take on some teams that may be surprising you in good ways or maybe in disappointing ways. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And it's really cool just to see the growth of the channel. And I thank you for all your support. Even those who tune in and have not yet subscribed, if you want to subscribe, feel free to do that. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.